How you doing, folks? Jeff C. here on Monday, June the 10th. And, we cover a lot of American issues on this channel. And sometimes we forget about good old Canada. So all this coverage of the NSA, the mega data collection that is going on in the United States, and maybe Canadians felt left out. I don't know. It's possible. But don't worry. Don't worry, your good old Tory government is there for you. Data collection program got green light from Peter Mackay in 2011. This is from today's Grope and Fail. And we are now learning that indeed, we here in Canada are not left behind. We haven't been forgotten. The police state has not forgotten you, Canada. Did you feel left out? Don't worry. The police state loves you too. Defense Minister Peter Mackay approved a secret electronic eavesdropping program that scours global telephone records and internet data trails, including those of Canadians, for suspicious activity or patterns of suspicious activity. Excuse me. Mr. Mackay signed a ministerial directive formally renewing the government's metadata surveillance program on November 21st, 2011. According to reports obtained by the Globe and Mail, the program had been placed on a lengthy hiatus, according to the documents, after a federal watchdog agency raised concerns that it could lead to warrantless surveillance of Canadians. Oh yeah, really, eh? For fucking sure. We have said it time and time again on this show how this has been their plan all along, or one of their major plans all along, was to bring in this surveillance state. They wanted to have the right to look into anyone's computer at any time, without warrant or without anything. You're either guilty or you're a child pornographer. That was their logic. This is the sociopathic conservative government that we have in Canada, run by Stephen Harper. There's little public information about the program, which is subject of access to information requests that have returned hundreds of pages of records, with many passages blacked out on the grounds of national security. Yes, because we know by now all those terrorists that want to blow up our beautiful country, there's just too many of them, and they're very dangerous. Therefore, we need to watch everyone all the time. It was first explicitly approved in a secret decree signed in 2005 by Bill Graham, Defense Minister under Paul Martin's Liberal government. So the Liberals were the first ones to bring this nasty little thing in. It is illegal for most Western espionage agencies to spy on their citizens without judicial authorization. But rising fears about foreign terrorist networks, coupled with the explosion of digital communications, have shifted the mandates of secretive electronic eavesdropping agencies that were created by the military bureaucracies to spy on the Soviet states during the Cold War. Wonderful, wonderful bureaucracies protecting us from all those damn dastardly terrorists that want to blow you up in your little small town. Because they hate our freedoms. They hate our freedoms, right? The Canadian surveillance program is operated by the Communications Security Establishment Canada, CSEC, good old CSEC, an arm of the Department of National Defense. Yes, and one of our first podcasts here in Free Radio Revolution, we covered CSEC and what they were up to, spying on everyone. And that the fact that they didn't really have anybody overseeing them to see exactly what they were up to was particularly troubling. So in recent days, disclosures of secret surveillance programs operated by the U.S. National Security Agency, which we've covered in length here, have set off a storm of debate. Leaked documents and accounts have described an NSA project known as PRISM that allegedly gives the agency access to data from 9 U.S. internet companies, including Google and Facebook, Another leaked document describes the existence of a government program that collects telephone metadata surrounding millions of phone calls placed by Americans every day without anyone listening to the actual conversations, which is a load of hogwash because I just covered the Snowden whistleblower, who was the whistleblower for the NSA, and he says they could listen to anything. They could follow anyone. They could access anyone's data, even the president if they wanted to. They had full power to do so, and that is why he stepped down. So let's not kid ourselves, grope and fail. It is far more serious than the mainstream media is going to picture it. In Canada, a similar sensibility, though not the same sweep, appears to have taken root. Metadata is information associated with telecommunication and not a communication, reads PowerPoint briefing sent to Mr. Mackay in 2011. Current privacy protection measures are adequate, officials say, as they sought the renewal of the Canadian metadata program. But of course, they didn't bother to ask anyone, right? They didn't even ask the House. They didn't even put it through Parliament. No! Ministerial order. Peter Mackay is going to fly in on one of his Canadian Air Force helicopters after his fishing trip, and he is going to allow the spying of Canadians. Allow the government to spy on Canadians. Allow the security agencies like CSEC to spy on Canadians. Of course, CSEC's probably sharing much of their information. Heck, for all we know, they could be directly hooked up to NSA. Right? And it's all together now. All together now, right? All together now. We're seeing it everywhere, right? The New World Order is on the march. So many of the stories that I've covered recently all have this theme, right? That we need to protect you, right? We need to protect you, so we have to watch you. I talked about how in Great Britain, the same thing is going on. In fact, because of the Woolwich, which I like to say, but Woolwich mock beheading there, a little stage play that they set up. They said, well, now we're going to bring in the surveillance program in Great Britain where we're going to watch everybody all the time. On the internet, on their phones, in their homes, on their TVs, wherever the fuck they are. We already got cameras everywhere, right? We're gonna cameras. Pretty soon we're going to have fucking asshole cameras. We're going to stick a camera up your fucking butthole and keep an eye on it too. I mean, where does it end, right? Where does it end? Yesterday I was saying it ends with thought crime. So, you know, a full 1984, except with far greater technology and the ability to literally look into your brain. The CSEC and NSA take pains to distinguish between the contents of a communication, which is out of bounds illegally if it involves a citizen, and surrounding metadata, which is considered in play. Yeah, I'm sure they take pains. Pains. We heard about those pains from Mr. Snowden there, right? Which was like, this thing is completely out of control and has no business being in a democracy or anywhere near it. In fact, it is the complete antithesis of democracy when everyone is considered guilty, and therefore we're going to collect all your information on you, because you know what? You just might decide to be a terrorist one day. You just might decide it. You might wake up one day, you know what? I want to blow up Parliament Hill. You know, why not? Right? I'm going to talk to, Mohammed so-and-so and make a phone call to Syria and maybe Iraq and Iran, get something going, right? How crazy is it, right? We're all fucking guilty, right? Period. Mining metadata may never reveal what is said, but phone records, internet protocol addresses, and other data trails can reveal who knows whom and how well. Authorities who suck up signals on a vast scale can use metadata to create pictures of social networks, even terrorist cells, if they are armed with enough raw computer power to sift through the gigantic pools of data. Yeah, enough computer power. Since computer power increases exponentially, right? That is the reality of the world that we're living in. You go to the store, you buy a computer. I mean, by the time you put the computer in the car, they're already putting out a new model on the shelf you know, that is more powerful and, has greater ability. And this is just in the retail. Imagine in these incredibly powerful security agencies, the amount of data, there is no limit. I mean, now they can record everything. And believe me, they do. It's a dog licking its balls. If they can do it, they will. We said this long ago. We always believed this is what was going on. And now it's all coming out. It's all coming out. And in a way, you could kind of say that they're doing this all in sort of concert. Great Britain, Scotland, Canada, United States. All of a sudden, well, we're going to watch you everywhere. Oh, what's the big deal? You got nothing to hide, right? I mean, if you got something to hide, then you must be guilty. You're either a child pornographer or you're a fucking terrorist, right? If you're not either of those, then you have nothing to hide. Then we should be allowed to look into your computer and follow everything you do and monitor every one of your phone calls. And don't worry, we're not listening to your phone calls, unless we have to, right? Because they can't physically listen to millions of phone calls, but those people that get flagged for turning up here and turning up there and putting in those key names, those maybe you're uploading YouTube videos and they got words like terrorism and, conspiracies and bomb plots and who knows, right? Then, oh boy, this person, ding, 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 it's all lighting up. This person must be watched. Now let's listen to their phone calls. What the fuck, eh? So, in Canada, a regime of ministerial directives, decrees not scrutinized by Parliament have authorized the broad surveillance programs. How the data is obtained has not been disclosed in the documents obtained by the Globe or in comments by CSEC. No, they're not going to tell you that, but it's pretty obvious, right? Officials do say that CSEC incidentally intercepts Canadian communications, but takes pain to purge or anonymize, I like that, such data after it is obtained. They take pains. They go through pains. No, I don't want to. Oh no, we gotta erase this, or we gotta take the name off it. Yeah, I'm sure they do, right? You believe them, right? Beyond that, the metadata is used to isolate and identify foreign communications, as CSEC is prohibited by law from directing its activities at Canadians. Yeah, right. That's what we've seen before. That's what we covered before, that there really isn't a watchdog, right? Here they say, oh yeah, it's subject to an oversight by a watchdog agency known as the Office of the CSE Commissioner, which has given broad approval to the meta mining program. So this so-called watchdog that watches over them is, oh, that's great. You watch everything. Go right ahead, right? The Globe and Mail is saying that the Canadians need a proper debate about monitoring of phone and internet. Yes, nobody bothered to ask us what we thought about it, of course. I mean, we're just plebs, right? What the fuck, right? This isn't democracy anymore, right? Right? So now they're coming out telling us, well, they're saying, hey, this needs to go through Parliament. The Canadians need to have a debate on this. Look, we're in the police state, and many times we said it before, this is the blueprint right here, Canada, right? I think Great Britain is another blueprint. Scotland with, my God, how crazy is Scotland now that they want to have a child guardian appointed by the state to every family, every child, right? Every child gets their guardian from the state to make sure that they are not being abused by their parents, or that their parents aren't having thought crimes, or who knows what, right? How does this shit happen? How does it happen to places that, were once considered democracies, where freedom was once something that we fought for, that our grandfathers and great-grandfathers fought for in world wars, so that we didn't have to live in, a Stalinist or a Third Reich, right? So, you know, this is the government that we have. This is here in Canada. This is what we've got. We've got the New World Order government here. Here's the story that Americans may not be so familiar with this, but it involves, of course, Guantanamo, the war in Afghanistan, and this 15-year-old kid who happened to be taking part somewhere in Afghanistan, was scooped up and spent 10 years being tortured in Guantanamo. So I'm going to play a bit of this just to give you an idea of our police state.
War criminal Omar Khadr spent his first night in a Canadian jail.
Unscrupulous Canadian journalists and politicians refer to him as a self-confessed war criminal. But his lawyer, Dennis Edney, argues that he is a victim of war, who at the hands of genuine war criminals in Western governments has been unlawfully incarcerated, tortured, and denied basic civil liberties. Omar Khadr, who is a Canadian citizen, was kidnapped at gunpoint from Afghanistan when he was only 15 years old by US occupying forces. He was then taken to the controversial Guantanamo Bay prison camp, where he spent a decade of his life without due process. And now, the Harper government is making the child soldier spend more time behind bars in Canada.
Surely, there can be no greater rebuke levied against a government, its elected representatives and others that purport to uphold the rule of law, than to have been complicit in something that is both real and horrifying against one of its citizens, especially a youth, namely torture. How we can allow a child to remain in Guantanamo Bay without saying anything, how we could allow a place called Guantanamo Bay to exist without making some protest. We cannot talk about ourselves as law-abiding people when that type of actions are not challenged.
The Harper government waxes lyrical about law and order, but when it comes to Omar Khadr, argues Edney, the Harper government has consistently flouted the law and refused to comply with rulings of the Supreme Court of Canada.
Involving Omar Khadr, the Canadian Supreme Court, in a major rebuke, ruled the US treatment of Omar Khadr in Guantanamo Bay contravened the International Convention on Torture and the Geneva Conventions, and that Canada was complicit in that torture. Well, the Canadian government is following the same path as the American government. They talk about international law, but they don't follow it. Omar Khadr was entitled to all types of international protection. The Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Convention Against Torture. Our own Supreme Court of Canada said he was tortured, and yet our government chooses not to provide him with all those conventions that he's entitled to.
The internationally reputed human rights lawyer condemned the Harper government's attitude towards the UN. Edney noted that the UN Committee Against Torture recently slammed the Canadian government's complicity in torture against Canadian citizens, such as child soldier Omar Khadr. Joshua Blakeney, Press TV.
Yep. So, it's almost maddening, right? This guy gets caught up in the whole dragnet that was post 9/11 there, the Patriot Act, all this craziness that enabled them to go in on the pretext or the pretense there of the terror attacks, which of course any of us who have a functioning cranium know was not carried out by 19 Muslims armed with box cutters. That's the most absurd story ever. And yet they go in and they arrest this child soldier, and he is a Canadian citizen, and they torture him for 10 years in Gitmo, right? And that is the government that we have here, that they are complacent, that they will, work hand in hand with the Americans on destroying the rights, destroying the Bill of Rights, destroying, in the United States, the Constitution, of course, the laws that protect the citizen against the state and against the corporations. Those are being torn down double quick time. And this is just an example of it. And it's pretty awful that this kid is still, he's not a kid anymore, right? He's probably 25 now, is still in prison for all this time, never getting a trial, never, never getting any sort of habeas corpus or anything. Nope, you're guilty until we've tortured you and got what we need out of you, like what 15-year-old kids would have in their heads anyways. It's just madness. It's just madness. So that's where we're heading here in Canada. We're all on board, right? We're on board with this new world order. We're on board with the UK. We're going to want to have our cameras everywhere too pretty soon. And we're going to be watching everything you do all the time, because you know what? Those terrorists, they hate our freedoms. So we got to destroy your freedoms to keep you safe from the terrorists. Even though we are the terrorist. The state is the terrorist. So Canada, you're not left out. Trust me, you're not left out. You are in this full. Hook, line, and sinker. This is the new world order in Canada. And if you believe for 1 second that they aren't fucking recording phone calls and putting names to everything, you are a fool. You're a complete fool. Because time and time again, our suspicions have been confirmed. I think in this last week alone, so much has come forth that it is just, this is what we've been saying all along, right? This is what they're doing. Now everybody else is like, oh my God, they're doing it. Well, geez, you're a little bit late to the party, but maybe if you had been awake all this time, you would have seen it happening earlier. We can't allow this stuff to go on in free democratic societies. I mean, unless we just throw off all the last vestiges of being a free and democratic society. If we just declare ourselves a police state, well, then anything goes, right? So Canadians have to ask themselves, would they rather be a police state in which terror plots that are probably, at least aided and abetted by security agencies like the FBI or CSEC are foiled, right? And then used as wonderful antidotes when government ratings are slipping, right? Oh, well, let's release this one now. Or after the Boston bombing, of course, how we saw. This is all connected. That's what's scary about it all, because after the Boston bombing, we had fake bombs going off, or suspicious packages turning up in Montreal and in Toronto, and, and then right away, the terror plot for the Via Rail train is foiled, and right away they have the terror bill, the new anti-terror bill, which means we're going to have to watch you even closer, Canadians, because we got to keep you safe, because just look at this, they were going to blow up a Via train, right? This is how it works. This is when the government is out of control and is run by corporations. And they want to watch everybody. They want us all microchipped. They want us all eating their GMO'd food. They want us all to be under their thumb forever. So Canadians, maybe you want to stop going to the Tim Hortons there and start paying attention to some alternative media here, and get an idea of what's really going on in your country before you wake up and you are in chains forever.